If you had asked me 2 years ago to describe myself in 5 words, I probably would have said loyal, logical, quiet, skeptical, and boring. My name's Mark, I'm 38, and I've spent most of my adult life believing almost any problem could be solved with patience, solid reasoning, and a little bit of overthinking. I'm not the kind of person who looks for drama. I've always preferred the hum of my server rack in the next room to the drone of a dinner party. Elena, my wife, is different. 36, interior designer, always with a project or five underway. She could enter a room and let the energy shift. People notice her. That's one of the reasons I fell for her. That, and her unrelenting optimism. Wherever she worked, she made it seem like the only place worth being. We met through friends 7 years ago. She moved into my apartment a year later, and in one of those late-night conversations under heavy quilts, we decided to get married. It was less grand romantic gesture, more shared agreement about building something together. Our personalities clashed sometimes. I liked predictability, she liked surprise. But in those first years, it worked. We filled in each other's blind spots. The mortgage was looming, but so far, so good. We both worked from home a lot. I had a desk, 2 monitors, noise-canceling headphones, and a routine that hardly varied. Elena, meanwhile, would flit from project to project, sometimes running out for client meetings, sometimes staying up all night painting mood boards in the living room. The first red flag didn't feel like a red flag, just Elena being a little weird. It happened on a Thursday. She asked if I could show her how to change the password on her phone. You know I'm paranoid about privacy. She laughed, eyes darting away. I shrugged, showed her the steps, and went back to debugging a Python script. After that, she was a little more guarded with her devices. In the past, she'd hand me her phone to show me memes, or leave it charging in the kitchen. Now she took it everywhere, locked the screen with a new code, and got jumpy if I so much as glanced in its direction. I noticed, but reasoned with myself. Everyone is more private these days. I'd read enough cybersecurity horror stories to know why. Late-night meetings became more common. Client in crisis, she'd say, grabbing her tote and keys. Sometimes she wouldn't eat dinner until after 10 p.m. Once, I counted 3 missed calls from someone named Jaeger P. while she was in the shower. When I asked, she rolled her eyes. He's just annoying, the project lead for that weird restaurant job, I told you. Her tone was a little too sharp. We rarely fought, but I started to notice small irritations accumulating. The way she'd complain about how I never wanted to go out with her friends. Her jokes about me being lost in my own cloud. Once or twice, mutual friends made odd comments. Go easy on Elena. You know she's always busy. Maybe you could help more around the house? The implication was I wasn't pulling my weight, which bit deeply because I thought I was. But Elena never said it to my face. Then there were the silly things. 30 euros missing from my desk. A pair of headphones I'd left in the living room vanished for days. Unexplained charges on the joint account. I brought them up, gently, and she shrugged. You probably misplaced it. You always say you don't sleep enough. And, ashamed, I'd accept her version. The alternative, believing she was lying, was more painful than the minor inconvenience. If someone reading this expects a huge, cinematic affair beginning now, they'd be disappointed. What really drove me mad was how ordinary things felt, and how expertly I could justify anything if I tried hard enough. Sometimes I lay awake next to her, staring at the way her shoulder blades moved with each breath, and wondered if I was being paranoid. I'd take inventory of every little red flag, and try to convince myself this was healthy suspicion, not the closing credits of what I thought was a strong marriage. I held off on confronting her. Instead, I started collecting my own little bank of evidence, mental notes mostly. Dates of late nights out, bank charges, which friend said what. It was stupid and felt like an act of betrayal in itself. But something in me, a residual skepticism, wondered if reason and routine were enough to protect me. Sometimes I think there were two breakpoints. The first, subtle, the second, all-consuming. The first happened the night I ordered the security camera. It wasn't out of jealousy. Not exactly. Truth is, a neighbor in our building had a break-in 2 weeks prior, and I became uneasy, not because I thought Elena was hiding something, but because the apartment suddenly felt not entirely ours. Objects moved, drawers not quite as I'd left them. One evening, a hard drive I used for automatic backups, something even Elena never touched, was missing from the desk and reappeared in the kitchen 3 days later. That same week, Elena spent the weekend at her mother's to help her with some paperwork. I lingered in the apartment, pacing, feeling the echo of her absence everywhere. It was a relief, shamefully. I set up a discreet camera above my work desk, one of those models made to look like a smoke alarm. By then, trust had become an abstract thing. I told myself it was for security. But on some level, I wanted to prove to myself that there was nothing to see. 2 evenings later, a notification pinged my phone while I was at the supermarket. Motion detected. My breath caught. I made myself finish shopping before checking. On the footage, Elena entering with a man. Not just anyone, but Jaeger, her so-called project partner. The guy I'd only met at one of those high-energy birthday parties where he seemed glued to her side. All easy laughter and familiarity. They paced the living room, speaking quietly, uncomfortably close. No obvious intimacy. But at one point, she glanced around, swept the room with her gaze, and then unplugged my backup drive, putting it in her bag. Jaeger said something, and she gave an odd, bleak smile. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't confront her when she came back, a day later than planned, citing her mom's migraine. I nodded at her explanation and, as soon as she slept, opened our shared iPad. Despite her new password, there were automatic backups from before, which meant old messages, voice memos, and transient files. Nothing truly damning, but I found a few WhatsApp audio notes from Elena to Jaeger discussing evidence, insurance, and how it'll be easier if he leaves first. One voice memo was, chillingly, a brief, recorded fight, my own raised voice in the background. Flashback. 2 months ago, a miserable spat about dirty dishes, which ended with her storming into the bathroom and refusing to speak to me for hours. I remembered the shame I'd felt, thinking I'd been too harsh. Now I saw the fight had been recorded, likely with the intention of replaying it. My skin crawled. Still, I resisted the urge to blow it all up. Instead, I sat there at 3 in the morning, building a folder on my laptop, documentation. I added every clip, every screenshot, every strange bank transfer, careful not to interpret, just to record. In a text file, I listed dates of her late nights, names of friends and relatives who'd made cryptic comments, and the small lies I could verify. Client meeting, according to Elena. Home with Jaeger, according to the footage. Days passed under a strange, unnatural calm. Elena joked with me at dinner, sent me funny Instagram reels, asked about my work. I found myself drifting out of the moment, unable to trust my own impressions. When did you stop seeing a person's face and start only seeing a mask? Mutual friends messaged me less and less. In a group chat, I noticed a comment. Hope Mark is letting you have some fun for a change. And her playful, don't worry, he's getting more chill lately. I think. I almost replied, then stopped, staring at my phone for what must have been 10 minutes. I realized, at that moment, that I'd been isolated. Not by brute force, but by suggestion, a kind of social fog. I quietly scrolled through old photos, wondering when exactly the weather had changed. At the end of the week, another message pinged. A bank warning about a large, one-time transfer from our shared account to a personal account in Elena's name. The description was vague, consultancy fee. I printed it out, added it to my folder. By Saturday, my world felt unsteady, as if all our routines had been melting away, replaced with something raw, dangerous, and new. I booked an appointment with a family lawyer. No drama, no accusations, just a calm, clinical question. What are my risks if I seek separation? Here's what I've collected so far. The lawyer took one look at my documents and started writing notes in a yellow legal pad. That night, I watched Elena sleep. I didn't feel rage or grief, just a cold, empty fear that I might never get my own self back, no matter what I discovered. The weeks that followed blurred together, as if my life had been reduced to a checklist. Gather evidence, consult legal codes, keep my schedule clear for lawyer calls. I functioned on autopilot, learning to act like my own private investigator. My first trip to the lawyer was almost comically businesslike. I arrived with a laptop bag stacked full of file folders, digital and paper. The lawyer, Anna Sergeyevna, was patient but brisk. She had the same tone as my old university professors during thesis defense week. She reviewed my file, nodding at the times and dates, copying the bank statement, requesting that I keep all digital files, and make backups somewhere she doesn't have access. Her matter-of-factness steadied me more than any friend ever had. By now, I was screenshotting every questionable message, every notable change in routine. I even set up a second camera in the entryway, registering motion logs in an encrypted cloud account. I kept a separate, hard copy notebook written by hand, where I logged dates, times, and even my own reactions after each conflict. If Elena noticed, she gave no sign. But her behavior changed. She started leaving earlier in the morning, sometimes coming home past midnight. One night, without warning, she burst in while I was at my desk, tossing her bag onto the couch with unnecessary force. "We need to talk," she said, eyes narrowed, chin high. Her voice was brittle, unfamiliar. She accused me of spying, of making a prison out of our home, claimed I was turning friends against her, manipulating everyone's opinion. For the first time, there was genuine venom in her words. I kept my face blank. Inside, my thoughts churned. She's prepping the narrative. She wants me to lose control. She followed with a threat. "If you keep this up, I'll call the police. I'll tell everyone how you shout, how you threaten me." I have recordings. She didn't realize I had the originals, the context, and full logs. This moment, more than any other, forced a clarity on me. I realized how close I was to being publicly destroyed by the right accusation at the wrong time. I called Anna Sergeyevna. She advised me, in her sure, clinical voice, "Speak as little as possible. Don't escalate. Document every threat, every argument, every detail. If you feel unsafe, or if she tries anything, leave immediately and call the police yourself. Do not, under any circumstances, engage in a shouting match or let yourself be alone without record." That advice saved me the very next night. I woke up at 2 a.m. to Elena shouting into her phone in the hallway, sobbing audibly to whoever was on the other end. Pieces of the conversation drifted through the half-open door. "He's lost it. I'm honestly scared. I might have to leave. Do I have rights here?" "No, no. It's fine. I'll record it next time." She slammed the door, then returned to bed, her body rigid and silent. I didn't sleep. I opened my phone, turned on the voice memo app, timestamped my own side of the story. I texted my lawyer just to have it on record. I even emailed myself a document with the subject line, "Timeline events, potential domestic escalation." In the following days, Elena began spreading rumors among our mutual friends, a campaign of small comments and stories about my supposed paranoia. She implied I was emotionally abusive, using classic "he's not who you think" phrasing. Friends I'd shared dinners and stories with began drifting away. One even texted me, "We heard you've been going through something. Hope you're seeing someone about it." A cold fury built inside, not for Elena, but for the ease with which a person's reality could be rewritten on the winds of rumor. But mostly I felt empty. My days became logistics and documentation, nights, a churn of insomnia, ground down by doubt. I started therapy online, anonymous, at first. The therapist's first questions were gentle, but I found myself unsure how to answer. "How do you feel?" Honestly, numb. Like I'd been drained and left with nothing but the shell of a man who once believed in trust and logic. One Friday, after Elena's latest incident, an evening where she taunted me with her phone out, visibly recording my every sentence, I made the choice. I packed a small bag, took my laptop, and booked a week at a hotel across town. I let Anna Sergeyevna know, and she filed an official police note with my evidence, preemptive, to counter any sudden accusations. For 3 days, I wandered the city in slow motion, existing in a kind of liminal state, adrift from my life, yet still tethered to every responsibility. I stopped at coffee shops, opened my notebook, tried to write down what I was feeling, and only came up with facts. Never emotions, just facts. Elena's calls came in waves, alternating between icy and pleading. At one point, she left a voicemail sobbing. Then, hours later, a cold text. "Don't bother coming back. I'm changing the locks. If you contact me again, I'll have a restraining order." I uploaded every bit of this to my lawyer's cloud folder, every spoken word and text. It became an instinct. Archive, save, backup, document. I didn't fight back. I just did what was needed, as though I were cleaning up after some disaster in someone else's home. It was all so quiet, so methodical, I barely remembered to be afraid. Update. The divorce was, in practical terms, straightforward. My lawyer guided everything through with cold precision. Every document, every notarized signature, each signed receipt for property taken, furniture divided, debts and mortgage split exactly as required by law. Elena was distant and brittle in those final meetings, hiding behind sunglasses indoors, lips a rigid line. No grand outbursts. She wore the armor of someone already telling this story to her own audience, the hero of her own hurt. The police never called on me, aside from a brief, formal interview, more box-checking than accusation. My documentation and Anna Sergeyevna's methodical strategy worked. On record, I was the bland, rational party with tedious digital backups and stamped logs. Nothing flashy for any courtroom TV drama, just dates, text exchanges, copies of online bank transfers, metadata from a home camera. Elena's stories, stripped of context, faded into routine bureaucracy. Some of our shared friends stopped replying to me. Others sent a single awkward message or quietly disappeared from every group chat. For a while, the only people I spoke to were my therapist, my lawyer, and the cashier at the coffee shop near my temporary apartment. Holidays, family gatherings, familiar weekends, all erased, replaced with a hollow sort of silence. For a long time, I couldn't even find anger. Only resignation, like someone digging out from under a collapsed building, hands bloodied on the cement, knowing nobody else would come to help. Therapy became a habit. My therapist was gentle but unrelenting, prodding at my stubborn need for order and control. She helped me see that the sadness wasn't just about losing Elena. It was about having the frame of my life rewritten by someone else, watching trust replaced by suspicion, realizing I'd never be able to relax into easy certainty again. I moved out permanently, finding a short-term rental with bare walls, plastic chairs, and the echo of too much space. At night, I stared at the ceiling, reviewing everything that happened, not as a crime, not even as a tragedy, but as a long, slow unraveling. The financial hit was real. Half of our savings, a chunk of my salary gone to legal fees, but the bigger wound was psychic. Some nights, I woke from half-sleep convinced Elena was in the next room, rehearsing a new speech for others' ears. It took months before I could see a friend without feeling the impulse to justify myself. I missed birthdays, skipped parties, screened every call. Some friends never came back, but the few who quietly reached out, one with soup, one with a single, simple, "I believe you," felt more valuable than any crowd. Sometimes I caught myself reviewing logs, scrolling endless backups as if looking for a missing piece that could explain how it all collapsed. I never found it. If you'd asked me, before, what justice meant, I'd have said truth winning out, the innocent being believed. Now, I know it mostly means damage control. No one gets their full story told. Most people want an easy villain. The rest just look away. Months later, I found a new apartment. Not perfect, but truly mine. I left the security cameras boxed, deleted old folders, replaced obsessive cataloging with short, handwritten notes in a real journal. Trust, I realized, would have to be built again, brick by brick, not only with others but with myself. Once, at dinner with a new group of acquaintances, someone joked about couples' little secrets. The table laughed. I smiled politely and kept silent, feeling a strange serenity that came from knowing how many stories weren't told, how every adult is a patchwork of heartbreak and recovery. I no longer defend myself with facts and tapes. I let others believe what they wish. The scars are there, but they do not define me, any more than Elena's betrayal ever did.